Okay.
So this is Dennis J. Bernstein, a former student of Muriel Rukeyser, and I am delighted to be here. Oh, hold on. I'm delighted to be here to share another wonderful birthday celebrating the great life and work of the poet biographer Muriel Rukeyser, my teacher and friend, who really changed my life. I wanted to read uh, from the lead poem in The Gates, the poem called The Gates. The Gates was her last complete publication of individual poems. And The Gates was published uh, ironically, just as I was beginning to study with Muriel Rukeyser. She had not taught for some 20 years. She was recovering from a stroke and she wanted to teach again. So she decided to give a workshop at the 92nd Street Y, which corresponded the opening day. I believe it was the first day of the workshop, was the first reading she was giving after the release of The Gates. So it was an amazing experience to be there at the 92nd Street Y, up on the whatever floor where the poetry library where we met with Muriel. We had one meeting. At the end of the meeting, Muriel said, "Would you like to join me? I'm doing my first reading of The Gates downstairs." So we all walked downstairs into an auditorium full of people who were there to hear the opening reading of The Gates. And The Gates, of course, is about Muriel's work as the president of PEN, the International Writers Association. And it was really based on her trip to South Korea to plead for the life of the poet Kim Chi-ha. Kim was sentenced to death because he was a human rights activist. He was fighting against his extreme right-wing government, of course, supported by the United States government. And he was facing a death sentence. So Muriel she was summoned by writers around the world. They met in South Korea. They went to the prison and they pleaded for the life of Kim Chi-ha. It was amazing to be downstairs with Muriel as she came on stage. And the first thing she did was have a couple of people move the podium out of the way. Because what was typical with Muriel is she wanted to get as close as she could to the audience. And so she said, "This podium, I don't want anything between you and me, Muriel and the audience." It was amazing experience to see that. So let me read for you what's called scaffolding. That's the opening of The Gates. And then I'll just read the first poem in this series. And hopefully you'll pick it up from there. And again, happy birthday, Muriel. I will always love you. The Gates, scaffolding. A poet is in solitary. The expectation is that he will be tried and summarily executed on a certain day in autumn. He has been on this cycle before, condemned to death, the sentence changed to life imprisonment, and then a pardon from his president during a time of many arrests and executions, a time of terror. The poet has written his stinging work like that of Burns and Brecht, and it has gotten under the skin of the highest officials. He is Kim Chi-ha. An American woman is sent to make an appeal for the poet's life. Of course, that's Muriel. She speaks to cabinet ministers, the cardinal university people, writers, the poet's family, and his infant son. She stands in the mud and the rain at the prison gates, also the gates of perception, the gates of the body. She is before the house of the poet. He is in solitary. And this is the first part, part one. Waiting to leave all day, I hear the words, that poet in prison, that poet newly died, whose words we wear, reading all of us, I and my son. All day we read the words, friends, lovers, daughters, grandson, and all night the distant loves. And I, who have never seen him, am drawn to him through acts, through poems, through our closenesses, whatever links us in our variousness across worlds, love and poems and justices wishing to be born. And I just want to tell you that, in fact, based on Muriel's visit as president of Penn, the life of the poet was spared, and Kim Chi-ha was ultimately freed and survived. So Muriel Rukeyser saved another life in her life devoted to speaking truth to power and standing for the people who have the courage to stick up for others, the human rights activists, those activists who stood against war. So thank you, Muriel. Thank you, all of you who are putting this together. And I celebrate the life and loves of Muriel Rukeyser.